At my brother's wedding, they invited me, thinking I'd arrive embarrassed and alone because I'm that poor single father. But the doors swung open and everyone froze when I walked into the Tudor ballroom at Hotel Kansas City with my wife on my arm and my 4 girls behind us, and I swear you could feel 240 necks twist at once. Quick note before listening: share which city or country you're watching from. The plan I later heard was for me to wander in late solo, maybe beat up Ford cap in hand and give everybody a good laugh before my kid brother made his big entrance. A little warm-up act. The family clown come to beg forgiveness in front of crystal glasses and carefully arranged shrimp towers. Instead, the mater pulled the doors. And there we were. No in a gold gown that made chandeliers jealous. Me in a navy tux that actually fit. And my girls in little matching satin dresses holding hands like they'd rehearsed it. Mom's smile fell off her face like it slipped on oil. Dad blinked like the lights hurt. Colton standing by the bar in some overpriced designer tux went white as the boot in the air pinned to his chest. I kept walking. Evening, I said. Not loud, not soft, just enough. Harper, she's 9, squeezed my fingers and leaned up. My shoes are rubbing, she whispered. The triplets were staring up at the ice sculpture like it might do tricks. Null shifted her clutch under her arm and nodded to me. Keep going. I pulled out chairs for my girls and helped each one climb up like it was any other dinner. Null sat with her head high, hands folded in her lap like she wasn't the sharpest thing in the room. The photographer didn't even raise the camera. He just blinked like he forgot how. I looked over. Paisley, Colton's bride-to-be, glanced at her parents. They didn't move. She stopped smiling. Her face didn't know what to do after that. A cousin I hadn't seen since I left town mouthed, "No way." I nodded back, "Way all the way." That's the clip you saw. Me taking a head seat labeled family like I'd paid for it, which I had, just not in dollars. I'm Caleb Archer. That was the ending they planned. This is the ending they got. And this story is about how they made sure I'd never show my face again. And how I learned to build a life they couldn't touch. I didn't even make it past Belton before the rain turned to sleep. Pulled into a gas station off Y Highway, leaned my head on the steering wheel and told myself I'd just take 5. Woke up 2 hours later, knees locked, the Ernst seat belted beside me like it might go somewhere. I grew up south of Kansas City in a limestone colonial with shutters that weren't fake and a circle drive wide enough for delivery vans. The lawn guy came twice a week. 4-bay garage heated. Dad's classic cars sat under custom covers with their own name plates. He only drove them on Sundays, weather permitting. Archer Concrete poured half the industrial park past it at 4:35. Grandpa started it with 2 trucks and a notebook he sharpened pencils for. My parents made sure no one forgot the name on the side of those mixers. Not friends, not teachers, not me. Mom Meredith shared 3 charity boards and color-coded her closet. She clipped every article that printed her name and pasted them into a leather scrapbook like it was a stock portfolio. Dad Douglas spoke in numbers, yards, cubic feet, percentages. He once woke me at midnight to check a spreadsheet because a bid was off by 2%. Said that's the kind of thing that cost you respect. I was there first, steady, quiet, got my own breakfast by the time I was 6. Colton came 5 years later and lit up the room from the second he screamed in the delivery suite. He had hair that curled just enough, a fake laugh that sold, and a backhand like he was born with a racket in his hand. If Colton wanted it, it appeared. New irons, late pickup, surprise party for grades he didn't earn. If I wanted something, it was maybe later and then be reasonable. I met Leah at a fundraiser I didn't want to be at. She taught 2nd grade in Raytown and had a Civic that rattled when it idled and smelled like crayons and mints. She laughed like she didn't care who was watching. I married her at 28 with a gold band from a local jeweler and a wedding in her aunt's backyard. Mom said it was quaint. She meant small. We got a brick rental off Gregory. Tried for a baby fast, waited longer. Mom tapped her glass at every dinner. Toasted future grandbabies like it was an inside joke. I never laughed. Colton smirked and talked about golf. Dad didn't look up. Then a delivery truck ran a red at 63rd in Prospect. I never made it to the hospital in time. Never heard her voice again. Just a nurse with tired eyes and a clipboard who said, "We did everything like she'd said it 100 times." The funeral was cold and sunny like the weather didn't care. Mom hugged strangers, dabbed to tears like she was on the morning news. Dad kept a hand on my shoulder for the photographer, grip like a clamp. 3 weeks later, she said it, standing in the study with her pearls on and the smell of floor polish in the air. "We have to move forward, Caleb. People are watching how we handle this. No grandkids, no daughter-in-law, no plan," she said with Dad silent beside her, eyes on the fireplace like it had something to say. That's when they gave me the envelope and the key fob, $6,500, the old Tacoma, and marching orders. Take some time, Dad said like I was going on vacation. Don't come around the club. Handle this private. Colton leaned in the door frame like a man watching a rerun. Tie loose, eyes bored. It's for the best, man. You don't want to be here right now. I packed 2 boxes. Leah's photo, her mug, the urn. Drove off in the rain with smeared wipers and one headlight out. The gate clicked behind me. The first night in that apartment, I found a roach in the microwave and killed it with a Timberland. No shame about it. The hallway smelled like burnt toast and bleach, and the ceiling in the bathroom had a bubble where water lived. I didn't care. It had a deadbolt and didn't cost more than I had. That was enough. I spent most of the first month just trying to stay upright. The deposit, utilities, a mattress that felt like plywood wrapped in denim, and a folding table I got off Craigslist from a guy who kept calling me chief. That all swallowed up most of what my parents gave me. I took overnights at a third-party logistics warehouse near the river. One of those places where trucks come in hot. Dock doors slam like shotgun blasts and everybody's too tired to talk. Steel-toed boots, scan guns, pallets stacked 10 high. I'd sit in the break room at 5 a.m. with a styrofoam cup of burnt coffee, watching the vending machine spin the same Snickers around twice before dropping it. Saturdays were worse, too quiet. I started helping at a church downtown, packing weekend food kits for kids in the foster system. It gave my hands something to do and no one asked for anything more than that. That's where I met Harper. She was 4, hair the color of wheat, a spark plug and secondhand sneakers with a sticker on her shirt that said visitor scab on her knee. Crayon in one hand, napkin in the other. She looked up at me and said, "Hi, sir. Do you want to see my dog?" I said, I did. She held up a coloring sheet with a lopsided dog she'd made purple and leaned into my side like we'd known each other for years. The caseworker, a tired woman in a cardigan with tea stains on the cuff, told me Harper had bounced twice already. Said her mom was long gone, dad unknown, and that murmur they were monitoring was probably not a concern. Then she looked straight at me and said, "Most folks want easy." I didn't say anything, just watched Harper press down so hard the purple crayon snapped in half. I signed up for Saturday mornings, then Tuesdays after my shift, then every moment I had left. The caseworker asked if I had any arrests or USICs needed to get ahead of. I said no. She looked surprised like that was rare. Next came the interviews, home checks, fingerprints, 6 hours of online classes where I learned how to spot signs of trauma and what foods to avoid. They asked if I had guns. I said no. They asked if I'd ever hit anyone. I said no. They asked why I wanted to do this. I didn't have a polished answer. I just said because I want her to have a house that doesn't move. The judge sat behind a bench with readers halfway down his nose and asked if I was certain. I am, I said. 6 months after that first purple dog, Harper moved in. She brought a plastic unicorn and put it on Leah's old dresser like she'd done it 100 times. Then she asked if I knew how to make macaroni from the blue box. I did. The quiet turned into cartoons, spilled juice, tiny socks that never matched. Appointments for that murmur that turned out to be mild and nothing more than extra paperwork. The first time she fell asleep on my chest, I didn't move for an hour. Not because I couldn't, because I didn't want to ruin it. Money was tight. I tracked every dollar on a spreadsheet I kept folded in my back pocket. Warehouse check. Snap. A few church pantry pickups when things stretched too far. My foreman asked if I wanted a double. I took it, then another, then made it a habit. The pay helped. The sleep didn't. One night, 4 months in, Harper stood in the doorway in socks too big and said, "Can I call you Dad?" I walked into the bathroom so she wouldn't see my face fall apart. Washed it twice, then came back out and said, "Yeah, you can." She said, "Okay," like it was no big thing. Harper wrecked on her scooter right in front of the building. Front wheel caught a crack and she went sideways into the curb, ribs first. She popped up fast, said she was fine, tried to laugh it off. 5 minutes later she was pale, breathing short, eyes too big. I didn't argue, threw her backpack in the Tacoma, buckled her in, and drove to St. Looks like the road might disappear if I slowed down. The air smelled like plastic soap and coffee that had been burned twice. Lights too bright. Nurses moved in straight lines like they'd rehearsed it. I held Harper's hand while they stuck pads on her chest and clipped wires to her fingers. She asked if she was in trouble. I told her no. I lied better than I ever had. The trauma dew came in calm and steady like nothing surprised her anymore. Dr. Noel Grant, brown hair pulled back tight, voice cool enough to calm a fire. She knelt to Harper's level and explained every step before she touched her. Harper nodded like she understood all of it. X-rays showed hairline cracks and a couple ribs. Nothing sharp where it shouldn't be, Dr. Grant said with Harper's murmur history. She wanted to keep her overnight. Extra caution. I said, okay. Before she finished the sentence in the hallway, she asked me if I was all right. I said, yes. She held my eyes a second too long. Try again. No, I said. I'm not. She nodded like that was the correct response and walked away. She rounded twice that night. Once close to midnight. Once again just before dawn. The second time she brought a stuffed giraffe from pediatrics and handed it to Harper like it was official equipment. Harper hugged it to her chest and named it Doc on the spot. When we were discharged, Dr. Grant handed me a plain white card with her cell number written in pen. No logo, no title. Call if she spikes a fever, she said. Or if you can't shake a worry. 3 weeks later at 1:40 in the morning I used it. Harper was hot and glassy-eyed, breathing fast. I stood in the kitchen with my phone pressed to my ear, trying not to panic. Dr. Grant picked up in 20 seconds like she'd been waiting. She talked me through Tylenol dosing, cool cloths, what to watch for, asked about urine, appetite, cough. Her voice never changed. Sounded like she was reading street signs. At 2:15 there was a knock on my door. She stood there with a grocery bag and a stethoscope in her tote like this was normal. Came in, listened to Harper, nodded once. Viral, she said. She'll be okay. She heated a can of chicken soup I didn't remember buying, and glanced at my empty fridge like she was filing a report. Wrote down 3 meals on the back of an envelope, stuff I could manage. After that, she stopped correcting me when I dropped the doctor. Let me call her Noelle. Saturday breakfast started showing up between my warehouse shifts and her clinic hours. We didn't label it. Didn't need to. It just kept happening. Park days, library runs. She brought Harper a little toolbox with a plastic hammer because she saw me fixing a loose cabinet and Harper wanted in. Noel held the flashlight while I worked and didn't say a word about the wiring. I wasn't ready to ask for more. She didn't push. Still, I noticed I started looking for her car when I turned onto our street. Not on purpose. Just happened. Harper took Doc the giraffe everywhere. Grocery store, doctor visits, bed. She told people Doc was a doctor but off duty. I never corrected her. That kind of quiet didn't scare me. It felt earned. I was decent with my hands. Always had been. Dad used to say I could square a corner by feel. He meant it as a compliment until he figured out I wasn't going to work for him. One of the guys at the warehouse said his cousin's coffee shop in Brookside needed shelves and couldn't find anyone to show up twice on time. I said I'd do it. Borrowed a planer, picked up a sheet of maple, and turned our carport into a dust storm. They paid on time, didn't haggle, sent me to a realtor who needed built-ins for staging houses. She wanted clean lines and quick turnaround. I made it happen. I paid the $138 filing fee and started Archer Mill and Joinery out of a corner of the living room. Harper drew the logo, a crooked saw with a face, and we stuck it on every invoice like it belonged. Orders stacked. I bought a used panel saw from a guy in Independence and a trailer that shook above 55. Didn't matter. I made deliveries myself. Wore knee pads inside houses I couldn't afford to walk past 10 years ago. I slept maybe 4 hours a night and still felt better than I ever had. Nal started showing up late with takeout, curry, tacos, anything that didn't come from a freezer. She'd hold boards while I drilled pocket screws and laugh when I swore. When I sat down to invoice, she'd read off numbers and fall asleep beside me on a pile of receipts. One night at a diner off Truce, I asked if she wanted this. Me, Harper, sawdust in her hair, late bills, early mornings, the whole mess. She stared for a long second, then said, I've wanted this for a while. We got married under a cottonwood tree beside a creek. 37 people folding chairs. One of Null's colleagues paid for a string trio. Harper threw flower petals like it was her full-time job. Null could have lived anywhere, but she moved into our apartment without blinking. It was tight. She called it cozy. She was the one who pushed us to look for a small ranch house with room for a shop out back. I stopped taking night shifts at the warehouse and went all in on the mill work. First month, I thought I'd screwed everything up. Second month, I got 2 restaurant orders. Third, a developer asked for 16 lobby walls and a concierge desk. I hired Armin, then Armin's cousin, then a retired shop teacher who showed me 5 ways to clamp a warped panel. Noelle worked 12-hour shifts, sometimes 20. She'd text between cases, eat, water, stretch. I mean it. I'd send her photos, Harper's new bookshelf, a jig I finally figured out. Nal's old med textbook propped up to level a glue up. Then one Tuesday she walked into the shop holding a white stick. Look, she said. I didn't get it. Then I did. I sat down fast. First ultrasound showed 2 heartbeats. Then the nurse tilted the wand, frowned, grinned. 3. We laughed so hard the tech had to redo the scan. Panic came later in waves. Diapers, money, space, sleep. Then pride that filled my chest so full it hurt. Avery, Blair, and Quinn showed up at 34 weeks. Loud, healthy. I counted fingers 3 times just to be sure. No cried. I cried. Harper asked if she could hold all 3 at once. We made it work. Lap pile, 1 baby per arm. Doc the giraffe watching from the pillow. I moved Archer Mill and Joinery into a 4,800-foot shop with real dust collection and a forklift that didn't leak hydraulic fluid every time you breathe near it. 18 months later, we added a spray booth, a CNC I swore I'd never use, and employee number 18. We weren't rich, but the lights stayed on. The fridge was full. Our girls jumped in puddles like it was their job. Sometimes I'd see an Archer concrete truck go by. Same name, different blood. I was tightening soft close hinges on a walnut vanity for a client in Leawood when my phone buzzed with a number I hadn't seen in 9 years. Mom, Caleb. Honey, she said like we just had lunch the day before. How are you? We've missed you terribly. I wiped glue off my fingers then said I'm fine. She jumped straight to it. Colton was getting married. Paisley Carion. Yes, those Carions. Real estate and horse money. Whole different tax bracket ceremony at Hotel Kansas City. Head table reserved for family. Of course, we want you there, she added like she was offering a seat at her play. I told her I'd check the date. She gave a little hum and said, we've saved your place up front. It'll mean a lot to everyone. The invitation showed up the next morning. Cardstock thick as countertop, wax seal like a ranch brand. Inside, Paisley had written in big loopy script. Can't wait to see you. Bring your situation. On the back, in smaller handwriting, ceremonies on the 16th. Thought you could visit Leah's spot that morning. 2 birds that hit like a punch wrapped in lace. By sunset, the old family group text fired back to life like someone plugged it into the wall. So glad Caleb can come, Mom wrote first. He's had a hard time finding his footing. A cousin. Does he need help with a suit? Maybe we can crowdsource something decent. Colton kids' table in the back's got nuggets. Nall read over my shoulder while Quinn noted on a phone. Block and Harper filled a lunchbox with stickers. She didn't raise her voice. She just got still. You don't have to go, she said. I know. I told her. I think I do. Over the next 2 weeks, the bait kept coming. DMs, texts, side comments from numbers I forgot to block. He's still in that little place up north. Hope he finds park in downtown. He's not used to it anymore. No hard feelings, right? Just family. I booked a suite under Grant, not Archer. I ordered tiny gold shoes for the triplets and a sparkly clutch Harper picked out because it matched exactly nothing. And that's good. N's friend tailored her into a gold Carolina Herrera that made the whole shop stop breathing. She laughed it off, but when she stepped into the living room for us to see, even the twins sat still. The room got quiet. I rented a Bentley Bentayga. A bubble dealer owed a favor to one of my clients. He tossed me the keys like it was just another Tuesday. Nall raised an eyebrow. I shrugged. It slides. Harper asked if I'd see people I used to know. I said, yeah, were they nice? No, I told her. Not to me. She didn't ask more. She didn't need to. Avery asked if she could bring a stuffed animal. I said, yeah, just make it small. She picked document. We zipped it into Harper's bag next to her little emergency snack pouch and the hairbrush shaped like a pineapple. The night before, Null came up behind me while I ironed my shirt and kissed my shoulder. You sure? She asked. I nodded once. They invited the wrong version of me. The valet opened the door like we were royalty, not bait. The lobby smelled like roses and cash. A line of candles flickered down the hallway toward the Tudor ballroom and some planner in a headset nodded as we passed like she didn't recognize us from the guest list. Maybe she didn't. We weren't the version they expected. The matri stood by the ballroom doors, checked his notes, then looked up like he was solving a puzzle. I gave him a small nod. He blinked once and opened the doors. That room glowed like a movie set. 40T ceilings, iron chandeliers, checkerboard floor polished to a mirror. Left side packed with carry-ins, all sharp shoulders and expensive jewelry. Right side full of archers and stiff collars and old grudges. I heard a gasp before I even stepped in. Null's dress hit the lights just right. Gold flaring across the floor. Harper led the girls' triplets behind her 2x2 hand in hand because that's how they walk everywhere. Little parade in matching satin. Quiet feet, big presence. Phones went up like we were a breaking story. The string quartet missed a beat, then kept going slower. Now I nodded to the band, nodded to my father, who looked through me like he couldn't bring me into focus. His hand twitched toward his glass. Mom dropped her flute sideways on the table. It rolled but didn't break. She gripped it like she wanted to throw it at something and couldn't pick who. Colton turned red in the cheeks and gave a low whistle under his breath, then grinned too wide like that had cover it. A cousin near the end of the table leaned in and whispered, "Tried to hide it. Harper saw her anyway." She squeezed my hand harder. I squeezed back. We kept walking, heads turned like windmills. When we reached the front, I stopped and faced them. Just enough time for them to brace. "Evening," I said. "Meredith, Douglas, Colton, no mom, no dad, just names." Meredith blinked slow like she didn't know how to play this game anymore. "We saved seats," she said. Her voice had static on it. "I know," I said and pulled out the first chair. Harper climbed up and smoothed her skirt like we'd practiced. Avery crossed her ankles like Null taught her. Blair reached for a roll before the plate even hit the table. Quinn yawned wide and blinked like she'd been through bigger days. Null sat beside me like she'd been doing it for 20 years. She rested one hand on my forearm, just fingertips, just enough to say, "Breathe." The wedding planner hovered behind Colton's chair, wanting to speak, unsure how. Her clipboard dipped. She backed up and took a breath like she'd just come up for air. Colton cleared his throat. "Well damn," he said, tried to smirk. "Didn't know we were getting the full parade." Paisley gave a half laugh, then glanced at her parents. Nobody laughed back. She adjusted her napkin like it might save her. Someone 2 tables back filmed the whole thing. Flash on. I didn't blink. I leaned toward Harper. "Take a bite first." She nodded and picked up her fork. "Is the butter real?" "It is." She smiled satisfied and cut a triangle off her roll. I raised my glass of water. To family I meant the 5 of us. Nobody else at that table. No one clinked Ked back. Not one. But no one said a word against it either. Where would they put the scene? What column on the program lists reckoning between the vows and the cake? The string quartet picked up a different tune. Something lighter. A cue to unfreeze the room. Plates started clinking again. Servers poured more champagne. I leaned back, let my shoulders drop. No one told us to move. No one asked why we came. The hard part was never the walk-in. It was living 10 years like the past didn't happen. I wasn't pretending anymore. The next morning, before Harper even finished her cereal, we were viral. Some cousin's boyfriend, or maybe a caterer, no one ever fessed up, posted a shaky 30-con video of us walking into the Tudor ballroom. By midnight it had 6 million views. By Sunday night, 29 million and climbing. The comments range from "goat entrance" to "this is how you reclaim your bloodline," whatever that means. Hashtags I won't repeat. Strangers made memes out of my toast. One guy edited Quinn yawning into a battle cry. A neighbor texted me a link to a morning show segment. Panel of bright smiled anchors saying things like, "Poetic and redemption arc." I didn't watch it. Don't need strangers narrating my life. Monday 7:11 a.m. sharp. Archer Concrete's biggest client dropped a statement. "We cannot partner with leadership that demeans single parents and foster families. Contract can let. $41 million gone." By noon a lender called Dad. Someone always calls Dad. I didn't. Mom left me a voicemail. Started clipped. "We're disappointed." Ended wet. "You know, we still love you." I deleted it before she got through the part about reputation. Colton texted 3 times. "Can we talk? Let's be smart about this." No one wanted this to blow up. We were never partners on anything. Not at work. Not at home. Then word got around, probably through the cousin who still narrates the family like she's paid by the hour. Paisley's parents pulled out of a land deal. That one was supposed to cover Archer Concrete's Q4. The reception fizzled. The honeymoon turned into a "we'll revisit." 2 days later, the Karens posted an official-sounding press release. Postponement to reassess family branding alignment. I've never hated a sentence more or loved it. After that, the rat started swimming. People I hadn't heard from in a decade came crawling out of their digital basement. "So proud of you, bro, knew you'd bounce back. Always thought you were the smart one." I didn't reply, or I did with a thumbs up, or I blocked them. The second we got back to the suite, I opened the family group text, held my thumb on it, and hit leave. The screen went quiet like a vacuum seal. It felt like turning off a radio I never asked to hear in the first place. Null was sitting cross-legged on the carpet with the girls passing out room service pancakes and tiny syrup cups. Doc the giraffe was already wearing a hotel napkin as a cape. I turned my phone face down, let it buzz against the dresser like a bug dying. 2 weeks later, I filed the paperwork for the Harper Grant Fund for foster families. 1.6 million from our own accounts and a line of credit tied to contracts I could bet on. Null matched it out of her own channels, hospital grants, community groups. Didn't even tell me until it was done. 90 days in, we placed 36 families in. Clean apartments, covered child care for 74 kids with second parents, made space where nobody else had space. I bought a split level on 2 acres north of the city, quiet road, big trees, built a shop taller than my first apartment. When the deed came through, I added 4 names under mine. Harper, Avery, Blair, and Quinn. Dad tried to reach me through a guy we both used to know. Said he wanted 5 minutes. Man, I let it ring out. Mom sent 3 letters in the handwriting she used for Christmas cards. I burned them in the fireplace before I finished the first line. Colton posted a big long captioned apology with a filtered photo of a sunrise like that meant something. Then he tried to call Armin. Armin told him he's with his kids right now, which was true and also the answer forever. The giraffe still rides to school most mornings, Quinn insists. No one asks about that part, but it's the only part that matters. A year to the day after that ballroom entrance, I stood behind a lectern at a foster care. Breakfast in a prairie-style banquet hall with squeaky chairs, weak coffee, and people who gave a damn. Null and the girls sat in the front row in little navy sweaters. Harper had grown half a head and carried herself like she'd been through storms and stayed dry. The triplets fidgeted less than usual, which is saying something. The director read a short intro I didn't ask for, then handed me the mic. She asked what I'd say to a man like I used to be. A man cut loose by his own blood, handed a key and told to stay quiet so nobody had to watch him fall apart. I told her this. I thought I had to prove I wasn't a burden. That's what I got taught, whether they said it out loud or not. Be useful. Be perfect. If you can't manage that, at least be invisible. So when they slid me that envelope and said, "Keep your head down," I did. I disappeared like they wanted. Nearly broke me. What saved me wasn't money. Wasn't a truck or a win or some comeback story. It was a 4-year-old with scabby knees and a purple crayon who asked if I could make macaroni. It was a woman who showed up at 2:15 in the morning with soup and groceries. Not because I asked, because she knew I wouldn't. It was learning you don't need permission to matter. You just need to show up every single day. Family isn't blood. It's who holds the line when everything gets loud. It's who makes space when you're too tired to ask for it. So if your parents only clap when you win, stop looking for their applause. Find people who see you at your worst and say you're still mine. If they tell you to come in quiet so you don't embarrass them, walk in steady so your kids learn how a man stands tall. Don't burn yourself trying to prove someone wrong. Build something that makes the right people proud and makes the wrong ones irrelevant. We made noise that night at the wedding, sure, but it wasn't for them. It was for a little girl who once believed she was too much trouble to keep and 3 sisters who will never have to wonder where they belong. After the applause, too long, too loud, I took my girls for pancakes, let them order chocolate milk on a school day. On the way out, a man stopped me. Said he hadn't called his son in 2 years. Didn't know how to start. I told him, start with, "I'm here." He nodded. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. Either way, I buckled my girls in, made sure the giraffe didn't get shut in the door, and we drove home past a concrete truck with my last name on it.